Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? Hope it's great. Hope it's fantastic. Hope you're warm and safe. Supposedly, we're supposed to get like 5 to 8 inches of snow between tonight and tomorrow. We'll see what happens. Might ruin my plans. But I thought of a few more things that I would caution you to maybe not buy the cheapest you can possibly buy. And I wanted to talk about it. And basically, I'm going to talk about hand tools. Now, hand tools is a giant category of tools. If you go look at your home center's website or any tool manufacturer's website and you look at hand tools, you'll find everything from wrenches to screwdrivers to saws and, woodworking tools. When I say hand tools, I'm specifically talking about hand woodworking tools, and there's really three main things, and that is chisels, planes, and saws. When it comes to chisels, planes, and saws, you probably don't want to buy the absolute cheapest thing you can buy. Now, I say that as I stand here and hold a $10 Japanese pull saw versus, purchasing a $100 Lee Nielsen back saw for dovetails or whatever. I don't do a lot of hand woodworking. There's a reason why I'm pulled down a block plane, because I don't own a bench plane. I've never owned a bench. Well, that's not true. My dad owns a bench plane. I've never really used one. I own a block plane just because I found it to be convenient for, touching up glue lines and or chamfering corners. And chisels, this happens to be a Wood River offset chisel. This is a pretty damn nice chisel, but my main chisels that I use are Harbor Freight. I think they're $5 for 4 chisels, and I use these all the time. Here's the reason, though, why I say not to skimp on these sorts of things. And it's because as a new woodworker, you don't know that out of the package this sucks. Out of the package this sucks. This is a Cobalt, Lowe's brand block plane. It sucks right out of the package. I would also argue that out of the package, something like a Wood River or even a Lee Nielsen chisel sucks. All of these tools are going to need some tune-up after you take them out of the package. They're all going to need fiddled with. Now, saws, probably not so much. If you take your saw out of the package and you see that a tooth is bent, you should probably get a new saw. Because, you could set it, and people, you can watch videos on how to set teeth on a saw and figure all of that stuff out. But as a newbie, I don't recommend you attempting that. Buy the saw that, works for whatever it is you're attempting to do. But I would caution against spending the least. The first block plane I purchased was this $10 Ace Hardware block plane. It was $10, and I knew exactly what I was getting when I bought it, and I was willing to pay that price. The difference is I knew what I was getting into, and if you're a new woodworker, you don't know what the difference is between a $10 block plane and even just a $30 block plane. There's a huge leap in difference between this. For one, this block plane has no adjustment for the iron, which is what actually cuts, other than tapping it with a hammer. And so if you're not aware of that, if you're not aware that you have to set this by eye and tap it and get it level and flat, it might not be the right tool for you. Whereas something like a normal block plane has an adjustment knob, has a release lever for taking the frog off. This has an adjustable throat, which I kind of don't recommend, but it's what I got. I wanted to try it. But other than, features, right out of the box, the sole of this plane was not flat. It wasn't even close to flat. The blade was ground at an angle. It wasn't flat. So if I'd put it on a piece of wood and tried to cut, it would only cut on one side. I actually had to cant the blade over just to get a straight cut and tweak that by eye. There's a lot of work to be done out of the package with something like this, but it saves me a bunch of money. Could I have gone and purchased like a Lee Nielsen hand plane, block plane, and taken it out of the package and used it, yes, you can do that. They're probably the best chance you're going to have of getting a, perfectly set up block plane right out of the package, but it's probably honestly still going to need a good bit of work. The same goes for chisels. These Harbor Freight chisels, they're $5, but the steel is fine. There's nothing wrong with the steel in these chisels. They, out of the package, they're horrific. You would risk injury using these straight out of the package. You're going to have to sharpen them, and you're going to have to sharpen, Wood River chisels. I had to sharpen this right out of the package. It did not cut very cleanly. It has the bevel is machined on it, and it digs in. It doesn't slide. It doesn't glide. So I had to do quite a bit of work on this right out of the package. The difference is how much. I knew what I was getting into when I bought $5 chisels, and I spent probably an hour or maybe an hour and a half cleaning the set of 4 up to get them to be usable. That means I flat ground the backs. There's a slight hollow here, which I'm fine with. I had to completely grind off the bevel and start over and put a micro bevel and all of that sort of thing. But I knew what I was getting into. If you're a newbie and you don't know how a chisel works or what you're supposed to do with it, if you think that this is a chopping tool where you're just going to smack it with a hammer and blow out chunks of wood, sure, you could do that with a screwdriver and without sharpening it. But this is really a precision cutting instrument that's will completely change your world if you were to get into hand tool woodworking. If you wanted to try to cut dovetails, or you wanted to try to cut perfect tenons with hand saws, you're going to need a chisel to clean all of that stuff up, and it really needs to be flat and true and sharp. So you're going to have to put the work in. The reason I say don't buy the cheapest is because out of the package, this Wood River chisel, I forgot what it was called for a second. Out of the package, this would work just fine for a newbie. It would cut great. It would be smooth. It'd be like, oh man, this is great. Compared to this, this would be an amazing tool in your hand. But it's still, for my needs, I needed to clean it up a little bit. I needed to touch it up a little bit because I use this particular, this is called a skew chisel because I can lay it flat on the board. I use this to clean up joints that are proud. I use it to clean up dowels that are proud, that sort of stuff. And I really needed this tip anyway, I had to rework it. You're going to have to rework all of these things. I had to rework this cobalt plane right out of the package. I had to take the frog apart. I had to take the iron out, sharpen the iron. I had to flatten the sole a little bit. It was okay. Nothing like this. This took me probably a few hours to get the sole flat. And I never did truly get it flat. I'm not going to be able to show it to you on camera, but there's still a bit of a high spot. But I really only ever used this for chamfers. I attempted to use it for a little bit of face planing, but I just went, I went and got a better plane for that. So I would suggest not going too cheaply on the hand tools. Especially if you're going to try to start the hobby in doing finer, hand-cut joinery, hand-cut woodworking. Get the mid-range stuff. The mid-range stuff out of the package, you'll think it works perfect. Later on, you'll figure out when you need to sharpen or resharpen or regrind a bevel and touch up the chisels and planes for your particular needs. So, there's that. Hope that helped somebody. If you have any other tools that you think are absolutely you must buy better, put that in the comments below. I love hearing from you. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is entropy. It is a noun meaning the tendency of a system to run down and revert to total chaos. Just as the constant increase of entropy is the basic law of the universe, so is the basic law of life to be ever more highly structured and to struggle against entropy. Václav Havel, a Czech playwright, writer, and politician. Entropy, E-N-T-R-O-P-Y. I actually hear entropy a whole lot in my day-to-day world, but that's because I'm a programmer, and maybe that's something that we like to talk about in the world of programming. I don't know. How often do you hear entropy?